Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and in my previous video I shared that I was wearing my Adonai and his Asherah t-shirt, and I had a number of folks ask what was going on this t-shirt and who was being depicted. And this is a drawing that comes from my favorite artifact from the ancient world. It comes from a place called Kuntilat Ajrud, which is located in the Sinai Peninsula, and it depicts the God of Israel and God's consort, partner, or wife, Asherah, at least according to the inscription that is centered over the headdress on the male figure. This version of the shirt doesn't show that inscription, but I have another version that does show that part of the inscription. And these shirts and many others are available on either of the two Data Over Dogma stores that I have linked to in my link tree if you want to go check out what I have there. But I also happen to have a life-size replica of this artifact, and here it is, and you can see the male and the female figure and the inscription that is centered over the male's headdress. And this is a drawing and inscription that comes from a large jar called a pithos. This is Pithos A from Kuntilat Ajrud. And there are other drawings and inscriptions from other parts of this pithos, but this one I find most fascinating. It represents a male and a female figure who show imagery associated with the Egyptian deity Bes and a female counterpart, Beset. And while some people think the drawings are supposed to just represent that Egyptian deity, we know that in this time and place it was not uncommon to overlay such imagery on other deities in order to kind of assign the features associated with Bes and Beset to other deities. And the inscription that is written over top of the male figure and centered above the male's headdress refers to blessings by Adonai and by his Asherah. And this is a wonderful paper written by a friend of mine named Ryan Thomas that discusses why it is most likely that we should identify the male and the female standing figures in this pithos as Adonai and his Asherah. And I and many other scholars understand this to be pretty secure evidence that around 800 BCE, prior to the reign of Josiah, toward the end of the 7th century BCE, the worship of Adonai alongside a consort, partner, or wife was pretty common. There does not seem to be any kind of institutional opposition to it until we get to Josiah. In other words, God had a wife prior to the late 7th century BCE. And obviously, a bunch of people are going to respond that no, that is just the apostate Israelites. Those are the people who were backsliding into idolatry and were doing what they knew wasn't right. However, that's not really supported by the data, because the earliest evidence of any kind that we have that Asherah was demonized or vilified or her worship was prohibited comes from the time of Josiah in the late 7th century BCE. And so we can't just presuppose that the prohibitions and the ideals that were asserted in this campaign of cult centralization on Josiah's part toward the end of the 7th century BCE can be retrojected further back into Israel's history. Most scholars who study early Israelite religion agree that from the very beginning, all the way down probably to around Josiah, it wasn't considered a big deal that Adonai had a consort, partner, or wife. Now, originally, it would have been the wife of El, the Northwest Semitic patriarchal high deity, who originally was likely distinct from the youthful warrior storm deity divine profile that was appropriated by Adonai when they were brought into the central or northern hill country. But probably somewhere around 1000 BCE, the divine profiles of Adonai and of El were conflated, and the two deities became one. And from then on, El's consort, partner, or wife became Adonai's consort, partner, or wife, until Josiah's campaign of cult centralization literally demonized and vilified Asherah and prohibited her worship. So I think this is one of the most fascinating archaeological discoveries about ancient Israel. It's my favorite artifact from the ancient world. My friend Robert Algott made this replica, which surprised me how big it was. I have never seen the original in person, but I wasn't aware of precisely how big it was. And I love being able to tell people who ask what's going on my t-shirt that that is an ancient Israelite drawing of God and their wife. And the fit for this video, obviously, continues to be Adonai and his Asherah.